But yeah, I switched to high beam and it's a world of difference. Hey everyone, Josh here. So today we're doing a quick upgrade on the headlights on the V10 TDI Touareg, and we're putting LED replacement bulbs in. So I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad thing yet, but we're gonna give it a shot. There's a few issues that we might run into, and there's also a quick and easy and free upgrade for these, at least for the high beams. So one of the very first YouTube videos I made was a quick coating changes that I made on this Touareg, and that was to modify how these headlights and fog lights work. Originally, this is your Bi-xenon or HID light. So that is your low beam. It's got a little shutter in there, and then also shutter removes, and that's your high beam. This bulb in here is only there for flash to pass or when you go to hold the stock to high beam somebody. So there's a coating change you can make so that this comes on with your high beam all the time. This one is your low and high, and your fog lights also stay on all the time. So that makes a pretty big difference in high beam. But my complaint is low beam. I've got pretty poor output right now. This lens isn't too bad. This one's getting fogged over a little bit, but there's also some other issues we're gonna run into, but I'm not sure how it's gonna work out yet. We're gonna pop these out and we're gonna stick some LEDs into them and see how they work. So as far as bulbs, we're using D1S for the low slash high beam, and we're H7 for the flash to pass or high beam. If you have a regular halogen headlights, you need an H7 and an H9, like a set. So Auxito sent me the D1Ss to try. I bought the H7s because I wanted to do both sets in there. So that's what these look like. The D1Ss have great big heat sinks on the back. Both sets have little cooling fans inside. So it works good for sealed headlights where you don't have dust and stuff blowing through them. So we're gonna plug these in. We're gonna make sure the Touareg, the bulb checker is happy. They don't flicker, anything like that. And then make sure everything works how it's supposed to. If everything works out good, I've got a coupon code for Auxito for anything at their LED bulbs. So that's codes Josh's Jettas for 15% off. So we'll see how these work out and see if they're worthwhile getting. Okay, so I'm gonna stay here now. So this D1S is actually, I don't know if you'd classify it as an HID LED. So it actually plugs into your existing ballast, so that's 85 volts that feeds to it. And actually, funny enough, if you're on YouTube a little bit and you like tools, Torque Test channel just came out with a video for HID and LED headlights, and just so happened to be they're using an Audi A4, which uses the same D1S headlight bulb. So they've got some scientific readings to compare the HIDs to no-name HIDs, and then they don't test the Auxito, but they test a couple other LED HID lights, if you want to call it. So once you're done watching this video, check out Torque Test channel. So as far as getting to the bulbs, we need to pop these headlights out. Luckily they come out, they're supposed to come out nice. So we've got this little twisty guy here. You're going to twist towards the front of the car to kind of push them out, and then they have a spring retainer in here to stop them from falling right out. The issue is sometimes people get a little aggressive with them and break them off, so that side's going to be a little less fun, but we're going to see what we can do here. So as long as everything's together, you should just be able to twist that out like that. It should get to a point where it doesn't go anymore. Then you got to find the spring retainer. It's right there. So you got to get down there, push that down, and then kind of pull the headlight out at the same time. So the first thing we're going to want to check out is the wiring. So these are bad. This just slides out, and that's your little twisty guy that you're twisting. So originally that's facing back, and then you rotate it ahead to push the headlights out. So that's what you're actually turning. So this is your jumper harness, so it just slides up against here. You're gonna wanna make sure that this insulation isn't falling off of the wiring back here. So just kind of make a good look. I don't have my fender liners in, and I should definitely pop them back in because that's making a mess up here. But just check to make sure you don't have any bare wires there. The next spot you're gonna wanna check is inside the headlight itself. For all of these wires, you wanna make sure the insulation's all good on it as well, because here is my 04 headlight. And And here's an example of what you don't want. All these wires are bare in here. So that's a good way to short out and catch on fire. So check and make sure all of that is good. So when we're getting this headlight out, that's the little clip right here. So you want to try and not flex all of these wires too much, because the insulation probably will be dry, but if you don't break it, that's best. That just pops up and over, and then this should just kind of wiggle out of there. Nice shot of my hands, I guess. So you don't want to touch the bulb itself in case you want to put these bulbs back in. So the next thing you're going to want to check out is the projector itself. Okay, so as I kind of figured, my projectors are burnt up, so that's going to affect the light output. So it's kind of like you take your light, shine it on some cardboard, or shine it up against a mirror. You're obviously, if it's shining against cardboard, it's going to soak up some of the light, whereas a mirror is going to reflect it. The back of the projector is the same kind of deal. You look up there, you see it's all black and burnt, whereas on the bottom side, it's still nice and shiny. So that projector's all burnt up. So I'm gonna be on the search for projectors to pop in this. But for the meantime, we're gonna try some brighter bulbs into a less than ideal housing. So these new bulbs, they only plug in one way, same as the old style. And then you'll pop it in with the plug facing down, same way as how we took that one out. So that pops in nice and easy. You gotta plug this in before you put the bulb in. And this also kind of sits in there, and then you gotta push a bit more and it'll kind of pop in there before you get this retainer popped on. So up next, we're gonna do the H7 bulb. So this is the one you wanna be really careful. Try not to disturb any of this wiring here. Same thing, pull the plug off the back and just that spring retainer. So these H7s, they look a little bit different on the back compared to what came out, but the main thing is you want this tab to the top, and then these are polarity sensitive, so negative is going to be the black wire, so it's going to get plugged in the same way it came apart, just something to kind of keep an eye on. So buffing didn't get me where I needed to be, so we got it wet sanded with 800,000 and 2000 grit. It's not perfect, there's still a bit of roughness on the bottom, but I've got to try and find different headlights anyways, so this will be clean enough for now. So we'll get the buffer out and kind of clean that up. Okay, so it's not perfect, but that's as good as it's going to get for now. So it's somewhat similar to the other one now. So we'll pop this in and we'll make sure both of the new LEDs work. And then it's nice and dark outside here now. We'll roll it outside and see what it looks like against the garage door before I change this side. Okay, so I ran into a bit of an issue here. The old side's working. New side's not, but what's happening is when this headlight gets brought into the bucket, it's not contacting the slide pin connector. So if you go inside with a pry bar or screwdriver, you'll see that white connector down in just in front of the air filters. You just got to pop it ahead a little bit here. Okay, so here we are outside. So you can see the light at the cutoff line. I would say the cutoff line's doing what it's supposed to on low beam. The LED seems like it spreads the light out a little bit nicer versus the HID, which seems like it's pretty concentrated in a straight across bulb. But I'm thinking both the output and that issue probably is related to my reflector bowls having the reflectiveness burnt off of them. So I think if I get new reflectors, I think that would help a lot. I think the LEDs are a nice in-between phase. So then as far as high beam, I would say that LED kind of spreads the light out a lot nicer, whereas the incandescent, you can see a really hot spot. It looks a lot worse on my phone. I'll get out and I'll see if it make a difference here. Okay, I'm still a touch low on the driver's side here, but you can see the light output difference. Like, it's a lot more bright really than that side. I never checked the reflector bucket on this side, but I'm going to assume it's in better shape than that other side. It's a fair decent difference. Okay, so if you're unlucky like me and your adjuster or remover thingy is broken on this side, the trick is to get aggressive with it. Get a pry bar or a screwdriver and just hit these gears and rotate it. So same as before, you're gonna want to turn it backwards to suck the headlights in and forwards to spit the headlights out. So it's really not that bad. It might be stiff for the first few turns and then it should go nicely. And then same thing, you've got the retainer clip down in here somewhere. Okay, so don't mind all the lights. Touareg's in for some repairs here today. But if we turn the key on, you're gonna notice the light out bulb comes up right away. So that is not necessarily the headlights. That's going to be my plate lights that have disintegrated and just turned into rust. So luckily a scrapyard close to me had some Touaregs. So I've got some okay bulbs. Actually, I think they're both burnt, but got some bulbs we'll pop in. Okay, so a word of advice, if you're gonna buy a vehicle from Ontario, Canada, don't. So not only was the half of the light rotted away, the pins inside also rotted away. So there's one pin stuck inside the connector. I've got a depinning kit, but everything's so rusty inside I can't get it depinned. So the one light works, the one doesn't. So let's see if that's enough to get this bulb checker away. And if it's gone, then we know that the Auxito LEDs play nice with the Touareg. Perfect. So yeah, so no faults are going to come up with those LEDs, so that's a nice added bonus. Okay, so it's a beautiful night out to be testing this out. So you can see the left hand side over here is sitting really low compared to the other side. So I think that's part of my issue with low beam, poor output. But yeah, I switched to high beam and it's a world of difference. And then I can put the fog lights on here yet too, which that just kind of lights up the ditch a little bit more. But before, the fog lights made a really big difference, and now not so much. Okay, so for my final thoughts on these LEDs, so you could tell when I brought it out here and compared the two, I had an LED in here, HID in here. I believe this headlight's in a lot better shape with the reflector bucket. So when I put the LED in this one, you could tell the difference. Like, this was spread the pattern out nicer, it's a bit brighter, and the cutoff line still worked great, so you're not blinding people. So I definitely think the LEDs were a nice upgrade. This side's aimed too low, so I think that's part of my issue, which I'll address here in a minute. And then this side, I've got that burnt reflector bucket like I showed, so that's gonna be my issue over here. The high beams, it was definitely night and day difference. The other thing I noticed with the halogen high beams is if you put your hand here, you can feel the lens is getting quite hot, whereas the LEDs surprisingly aren't. Usually you think LEDs are a bit of a cooler light output, but they do have the fans to try and get some of the heat pulled away from the actual bulb itself, so it might be dispersing the heat inside the entire bucket here nicer. But overall, I think it was a great upgrade. I already had one bulb burnt out, so for the $20 or $30 that to buy a set of the H7s regular halogens, you can spend that extra $10, $20 and get LEDs. We're gonna go look at the headlight inside here for a minute and then wrap this up. So one thing I'm not able to test here because it's only been a day is the longevity of these lights. So they say they are rated for 5,000 hours and 5,000 hours. I drive about 2-3 hours at night a day, so I think that should last me about 66 years. So I think that Touareg will be turned to dust before these lights are supposed to stop working. But if they do stop working, they've got a 2-year warranty, so I'm not sure how well that works, but that's what the paper says. So looking at this light here, so my burnt reflector bucket in here, so this is also your daytime running light. So I disabled mine, which is technically illegal, but with that bulb on all the time, you constantly have the heat in there. And I think that's part of the issue for burning up these projector buckets. Is if say, well, right now it's not a great time. I drive to work and home from work and it's dark the whole time. But in the summertime, when it's sun's up by 6 and it's down by 8, the headlights are never on. So you don't have to worry about getting the heat build up in here and burning these projectors off. But if you do notice, they are bolt-in projectors. So I used to do this a lot, 2016, 2017. So this is originally a Mark IV Jetta headlight, and it has a reflector bucket here, which you would use your incandescent bulb. Basically what you do is you put a new shroud in here, and you put a projector in here, and then you put your HID. Works awesome, a lot better output. And it's also a higher quality. So usually aftermarket lights, at least I ran it with the Mark IVs, the wiring's really thin, which this isn't the greatest either. But also just the insides, like stuff held together with hot glue, like pins held in with hot glue. Just the construction's pretty poor. And the other issue you'll see is the lens yellowing pretty quick. And that just looks really bad. I didn't really find a whole lot of aftermarket options for the Touaregs, and used ones were usually $200 or $300 either a piece or for a set, depending on where you got it from. So I'm gonna try and find another spare set, and then I'm gonna retrofit a projector in here, so stay tuned for that. But then the other issue is I've got this one aimed too low on my driver's side, so there is adjustment. So we've got this adjuster screw here, which goes down to a 90-degree gear set. Another 90-degree gear set, and it goes into your adjuster motor. So that's going to adjust it up and down. So when you first turn your headlights on, you'll see them dip down and come back up, and that's this thing doing it. The issue is mine was seized and the plastic's starting to strip. So I might see if there's an amount of adjustment on VCDS to get this to hold it up a touch higher. If your projector is in or out, you got this adjuster here, which is a 90-degree, 90-degree, comes over across, another 90-degree, and then pushes it on there. So that's a lot of plastic, a lot of chintzy plastic. Yeah, it is what it is. So it's obviously good luck trying to get it adjusted, but I'm gonna try and get some projectors. I'm gonna get these split apart. They're pretty easy to take apart. Split the lens, either use an oven or a heat gun, and just melt the sealant off, pop this lens off, which will take all this chrome off, and then you can just get the projector out. So I think that'll be my next project, so stay tuned for that, and that's the end of this, so thanks for watching.